When you started dealing with the injuries, what was the strength? How did that change? I guess from a strength and conditioning perspective.
Honestly, it didn't. My biggest issue was that it was too much strength conditioning and not enough football. Like when everybody would go to practice, I would go back to the weight room. So I would like be in the weight room in the morning, and then I would go to the training room and go to meetings, and then during practice I would go back to the weight room. And then like all of the condition, like I'd have to do a ton of conditioning during practice, right, when I was hurt. And it would be like the CrossFit bike, you know what I mean, the Aerodyne or whatever. And it was like with the strength coach. And so it was just like it became way too much. It'd be like
Yeah.
3 strength conditioning workouts a day. You know what I mean? Like I went there to play football. I did not go there to like, and I loved it, you know, but that's when I got broken was when I
Was there any
just like,
PT involvement? Was there like a team PT that would monitor any of your
yeah,
load
yeah,
during that?
yeah, and they met and they worked together, but like I would basically go to PT before the lift, then I would go to the lift and do the lift, and then I would go do PT after, right? And then we would go to meetings. This is on like in season. Then I would go to practice, and that would actually be like bands, go work out, and then do conditioning on the Aerodyne. So like that's like I literally have done at this point PT, a workout, PT, a workout, and then I will come back in the afternoon for more PT. You know what I mean? So it was just like, and I was like doing the first one I had the what's the machine at the ARP.
Yeah.
So I was doing the ARP in between those sessions, and I was doing that at night. So it was like, and it was all good for the first one, but then after I retore it, it was like I just didn't have enough mental fortitude to continue to get up for it. Like Jane was talking earlier, like what's it like to get ready for that session? I just ran out of that. There was no like amount of caffeine or nothing that could possibly get my brain to do it. And so then it was just like that's the one thing I'm proud of is like I emptied my tank, you know.
Yeah.
Like my tank was empty early on in that process, you know. So
And I feel like both times, especially the first time, you got your strength back very quick, and then the speed as well. And I wasn't there for it, obviously, but at some point, there has to be a bridge between what you're doing on the field and the weight room. So like once those physical qualities are back, like there has to be a return to play progression that mimics what you're doing on the field. It's not in a straight line or moving a
yeah,
weight. It's change direction, reacting to opponent. Like
yeah.
again, I wasn't there, but there has to be a very well
My
thought out
first my
progression.
first ACL, the amount of I did less than a month of that, you know,
Wow.
and then I was in a Big Ten game.
And you were, I mean, five and a
I
half
did
months,
less
little
like
different timeline
and
than
5.5 months,
most.
5.5 months post ACL, and I had less than 4 weeks of change of direction of reactionary live, and like 2 weeks of actual practice.
That's wild.
So and they didn't let me play with the Braves.
What
So
would you do in the PT? Would they do exercise with you and then they just have you do the other workout on top of the
yeah,
PT exercise you
a
did? Or is
lot
it
of
more like
like
manual? Is it like soft tissue work more in PT? Like, why would they double you?
I did some manual Graston, ultrasound, like later like the Normatex, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? We had a pool, so some pool work. But like the PT in the morning would be like the those blue pads like balance,
Yep.
like those
Eric's
balance
pads.
pads, a
Yeah.
lot of AirX pad work, a
Or
lot
like
of like
neuromuscular, yeah, balance,
yeah,
coordination
like
stuff.
balance coordination where they were like throwing me a ball, you know what I mean? And
Mm.
like I'm on one foot or like eyes closed for a certain amount of time. And then it would be like certain like band hip activation type movements or like hamstring curl. And like it just didn't quite fit together. You know, it was
Yeah.
like pieces that just didn't. It was just like you were talking about like feeling good. It was just never enough of like, hey, does Brandon actually feel good, or are we just like continuing to
Checking
hit
the
a lot of
boxes
the
of what we're
same, you
supposed
know what
to
I mean?
do.
It's like,
Yeah.
I don't really feel like I need like to hit knee extensions like on a machine right now, you know? Like I gotta go in the weight room and do something, you know,
Did
squat.
they ever
or,
ask you for feedback, like what you're feeling, or?
I think they probably did. I think that the big picture process, I feel like maybe just they're so like the strength coaches are like that day to day, you know, it's like they're so focused on that day, and the PT coaches are like so focused on that day, and it's so like that's their full time job is just the athletes of Iowa football, you know, and they're such a like that's all they do, you know, they don't work with any other athletes, right? They don't do anything else, so it's like they work for, you know, the strength coaches work for an hour and a half a day. And I'm not saying that that's all they do, right? There's other preparation. There's inputting of numbers. There's planning for the next days. There's planning for all this other stuff, right? But you know, they're with athletes for an hour and a half to 2 hours a day, and the PT are with them for, you know, the PT's got to do a little bit, or the AT's got to do more. Like they're like the water people at practice, which is stupid. Like I don't know why they. Again, I was talking about that in the first episode. Like why is that part of their deal? Like can they just take some time off, or you can't find anybody else to do that? But so they had like more of that type of a thing, but still, you know, they had the pre-lift and the pre-practice, you know, that the taping of ankles, and you know, making, you know, taping of wrists and that type of a thing. And you know, after practice it's some of that, you know, manual stuff and all of that, but it's like I don't know, it just was so much stuff.
And then you hit on some stuff at SCSU. Or anything else you want to mention? Your 5th year there, what that was like, how it was different from Iowa?
Less, like Jaden hit on a lot of that. Less foam roller, less band, less mobility, less, I don't know, feel good stuff. A lot of stuff with the bar, just trying to get strength and get that type of a stimulus. It was very like confined and boxy, and is what I remember. It was rare for us to do any type of mobility or stretching or anything like of that nature. And so, but at that point I was just like so over all of that stuff, and like compared to, I don't know, it just wasn't the same, you know?
Yeah.
So I was just like, I kind of know I have enough in the tank to play right now, you know? I'm not getting anything out of this. If anything, it's only going to take away from how I feel. So let's just get through this and
Yeah.
move to the next thing.
Do what you can.
That's how it was just how it was, you know?
Yeah.
So did it because I had to, type
Yeah.
of thing, which is not a good mentality, but it just, I remember like even at CSU, like there was like Bergie would be doing pre-practice stuff, and I would just go to the trainer and just have her stretch me, because I was like, I can't, I can't do the extra right now. You
And
know,
part of that
I'm
probably
over it.
comes from playing for 5 years. That's a long time. But like you said, you literally emptied the tank at Iowa with not only strength training, but then rehab and the football
Yeah.
stuff. Like at some
Yeah.
point, that tank, it ain't full anymore. Like you only got so much to give, like physically and mentally.
Yeah. And at that point, it
Can't
was all
imagine.
about just playing good football, you know? And
Yep.
like I knew I could play good football. Like I remember us even doing like conditioning at the end of practice. I was like, this is so stupid. Like I don't need to. I know I can play a whole game, right? I don't need to run sprints, and it's just gonna make me feel worse, right? And like that's, I guess, maybe the biggest point of all of it is like, I know there's like things that you got to get and you got to progress your athlete, but it's like having a really good feel over how they feel is so important. Like actually, genuinely, and like getting them to be honest and finding things that can allow them to feel good and is big.